Howdy mates, top of the morning to ya. Today marks Sunday, November 9th, 2025. And as of today, we're actually visiting a National Wildlife Refuge, which falls under the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, which is another federal agency. Now, in particular, this place is known as the Dungeness Spit. Dungeness is a region along the Olympic Peninsula that actually experiences a bit of the rainshadow that comes from the Olympic Mountains. But the Dungeness Spit that I'm walking on right now is actually one of the longest known sand spits in the United States. It's over 5 miles in length, which is insane. Couldn't think of a better word for it. But okay. So just going over like what exactly does a spit refer to? No, it's not our saliva, but rather a sand spit is basically like it's like a smaller version of a peninsula. So usually a sand spit is just a strip of walkable area that protrudes from the mainland. A great example of a sand spit is also found in the state of Massachusetts, for example, where Provincetown is located. But we are not in Massachusetts. We're on the complete other side of the country. We're still in Washington State. But noticeably, as I've been walking and sauntering through here, I cannot help but to just simply admire the diversity of what is here. So you figure, right now, I'm walking on the sand spit, primarily made up of rocks, driftwood, among some grasses, too, that are primarily responsible for holding up the sand spit. But then on this side we have what are known as the mudflats, or the tidelands in particular. This is actually very essential feeding ground for a number of waterfowl and gulls that come through here, or even plovers too, whimbrels, shorebirds. And I'm just naming off a few. But this is a very special migratory ground, as well as it's basically like a rest area, more or less. But also with the diversity of the area too, is just in the distance we have the Olympic Mountains, in which one of the rivers that feeds into this area, known as the Dungeness River, comes directly from those mountains in particular. And then as you move a bit looking towards the west, we have the Salish Sea, also known as the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Sometimes I still laugh at that name, just because, you know. Now, you guys may have heard the term ocean and sea get used interchangeably, but there is indeed a difference to look for. So, the ocean, an ocean, describes a body of water that covers lots of space. Whereas a sea, it also does have salt water, but the difference though is a sea is smaller by volume. And usually it has a surrounding of land. So often the sea acts as the bridge between land and the ocean. So noticeably, for example, if we refer to the Caribbean, oftentimes I've heard it referred to as the Caribbean Sea rather than the Caribbean Ocean. And that's just simply because the Caribbean is much smaller by volume. It only covers a specific region of the world. But it is indeed the Salish Sea, or the Strait of Juan to Fuca, that will connect to the Pacific Ocean eventually. And this is also very essential feeding ground, or feeding waters. Now, let me get on some higher grounds here. If you look towards the east, towards the Puget Sound, for example, you may notice, yeah, there's a lighthouse out there. That's towards the end of the sand spit. But then Mount Baker, which is actually one of the tallest mountains in Washington State. And then going a bit to the southeast, you can kind of see it just a little bit, but those are part of the Cascade Mountains. So like I said, it's quite remarkable how at this specific area, you're really seeing that diversity that primarily makes up Washington State, at least in the western portion. And so one can just really appreciate what is offered here. All right, you guys, have a good one. Take care. And of course, Journey on a Journey is onwards. See you later.